Hi guys, welcome back. So today is episode 4 of the MK7.5 Golf R project, and today we've got the whole front end off of the vehicle and we're doing cooling upgrades and talking about those as well. But before we jump into all of that, we have done a few other things as well whilst we're working in this area. So we've got the injectors, the indirect and the direct injectors have been removed to be cleaned and then be refitted. And then also we've replaced the water pump and the thermostat. A common problem on these is that they leak quite a bit. So obviously, whilst we're working in this area, we'll get that replaced. So then this customer won't have this issue. It's a common problem in these cars, even when they're like 10,000 miles, they can experience that. So obviously you don't want to be upgrading all the parts and then have a coolant leak, have to take everything back off. So yeah, let's go over to the bench and we'll talk you through the upgraded parts that we've got. So obviously you've got a big array of parts here. So we've got intercooler, radiators, oil cooler, hoses, some engine mounts, and then a fluid damper pulley as well. So yeah, upgrading all of the cooling on the MK7.5 Golf R. So if I just talk about the intercooler first, so obviously we've got the Ep4 intercooler here, so this is a much larger intercooler than the standard. And let's actually bring it over to the standard cooling pack, and we can show you exactly how big it is compared to the factory one. So this is the factory cooling pack just down here. So you've got the AC condenser that sits right at the front, then you've got the intercooler, and then you've got the engine water radiator. So the intercooler is sandwiched between these two parts and the radiator is sat right at the back. So the Ep4 intercooler is about the standard intercooler is about 68% smaller than the Ep4 intercooler. And the reason why you want to upgrade the intercooler on any sort of like turbocharged car is when a turbo compresses the air, it starts to heat it up. And when air is hot, it can induce knock, and also it will contain a lot less oxygen as well. So basically it's going to limit the opportunity for like advancing the ignition, and it's also going to reduce the amount of power that can be made from sort of like the volume of air that's going through. So the intercooler on the standard cars, it really struggles. Temperatures can go up to like 70, 90 degrees in extreme cases, whereas the Ep4 intercooler keeps it quite nice and low around sort of like 30, 40 degrees, stuff like that. So it works really nicely, and also after doing like repeated runs on the dyno, keeps it nice and cool as well, which is obviously exactly what you want. And then let's go over to the CSF radiators. So the CSF radiator for the MK7.5 platform is actually something we developed here. So it's quite a cool project to be involved in with the guys at CSF, and this made a huge difference on our car on track. The water temperature on the dash, it shows like 90 degrees pretty much all the time, but then when you log the car, it can go up as high as sort of like 120, 130 is what we've sort of like seen on track in sort of like extreme circumstances. And the reason why that is because you've got a AC condenser at the front, so you've got cool air going through that, gets heated up. You've got an intercooler in the middle, the air goes through that, gets heated up, and then right at the back you've got the radiator, which is left with really slow and also hot air going through it. So you've got a small little radiator that hasn't got a lot of flow of air, and it's got really hot air going through it as well, so obviously it's not going to cool down quite as well. So the CSF radiator versus the standard one, the standard one's 26mm thick, CSF one's a huge 42mm thick. Also has their B tubes as well, so it maximizes the surface area inside the radiator for heat exchange. It's also a lot stronger, a lot lighter as well, and also comes in this really cool finish, looks really nice. So that's the water radiator, and also on these cars, the water radiator or the water coolant also goes through sort of like the exhaust manifold as well. So as you're sort of like increasing the power as well, increasing the boost, all that kind of stuff, all that heat also then has to go through the water system. And then, so we've got that, and then also we've got a cool little side aux radiator as well from CSF, which is the little black radiator just down here. And that sits on this particular car because it's manual. It's only got one radiator. On the previous cars or even the current cars with DSGs, they've got two radiators. One that calls the DSG, one that's auxiliary engine. So this is the auxiliary engine and sits just in the arch. And this again is double, or pretty much double. So the original one I think is about 26mm. This is 42, and also a dual pass as well radiator on there. So this just adds a little bit more sort of like cooling headroom for the car. And then coming over to the oil cooling, so obviously on these cars, they don't have like an oil cooler from the factory. Obviously they've got like an oil water heat exchanger, but that's mainly for heating things. So Raceline come up with this nice little kit. So you've got a oil cooler that sits right at the front of the vehicle in front of the AC condenser, and then you've got this oil filter housing here, which also has an adapter on the bottom. So basically the takeoff is for that. So rather than taking the whole front end off and having to replace the OEM sort of like heat exchanger with an adapter, you can just pop this in, screw it in, plumb in the lines, and then you've got a nice oil cooler as well. So this is said to work really well. We haven't actually fitted one of these to a car, but loads of people have fitted them. They work really well. So we're excited to fit this on this car. And then over here you've got some APR charge pipes, you've got the intercooler hoses, and then you've got all the Forged Motorsport coolant hoses in this car as well, so upgrading all those. Benefits of those are just a little bit more suited to like high performance use, so like high heat, all that kind of stuff, a little bit better. Also flex a little bit less as well. And then whilst we're working sort of around the bottom end, we're going to be installing a fluid damper pulley. So what this does is it basically smoothens out all the engine vibrations from the crank, and it's said to increase horsepower by sort of like a couple. It just replaces the original crank pulley on there. And then engine mount wise, installing these nice BFI Black Forest Industries ones. So that's the engine and the transmission mount. So what that's going to do is it's going to stop the engine from rocking backwards and forwards quite as violently, and also moving left to right quite as much as well. So all that power that's been developed is going to go through the drivetrain, get delivered obviously through the wheels. So yeah, we're going to get all these parts fitted. Hope you enjoy the process. so much for watching episode 4. Obviously all the cooling upgrades have been fitted to the car now, so we've got everything we need to keep the car consistently cool. Obviously all the fluids like the charge air, the water, the oil, and all the other mods we did at the same time as well. So in next week's episodes, we're going to be moving on to the handling upgrades, where we upgrade pretty much every single part underneath the car, from like subframes, arms, bushes, everything like that. So it's going to be a long one, loads of information in it. Stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to watch other videos of ours that YouTube thinks you'll like, then click up here. If you'd like to watch some other videos that we have in the same playlist, then click here. And obviously if you enjoyed the video, then we really appreciate if you gave us a subscription. And then obviously you'll be updated when other videos of ours go live, and you can do that quite easily by clicking here. Hope to see you soon.